The Forgotten Kingdom of Henry. What if I told you that hidden deep within the forest of southeastern Nigeria, there once existed a civilization so advanced, so powerful, that even the mightiest warriors refused to challenge it? A kingdom that grew not through war, but through wisdom. A civilization where kings did not rule with swords, but with the blessings of the gods. Long before the British, long before the transatlantic slave trade, long before even the great empires of Benin and Oyo had reached their peak, the kingdom of Henry thrived. For over 1,000 years, it stood as the center of Igbo spirituality, politics, and culture. A land ruled not by warriors, but by mystics. A kingdom whose secrets have remained buried in the sands of time until now. Who were the Eze Henry? The mystical rulers of this forgotten kingdom. How did they maintain power without armies or warfare? And why did history allow this once mighty civilization to fade into obscurity? Stay with me as we uncover the story of the Kingdom of Henry, Igbo's first civilization, and one of Africa's most extraordinary forgotten empires. Imagine a world where rulers were not conquerors, but peacemakers. Imagine a land where the people believed that justice could only come from spiritual purity, not political force. This was the foundation upon which the Kingdom of Henry was built. But how did they expand their influence without war? And why did people across Igboland willingly submit to their rule? The secret to Henry's power was not found in the blade of a sword but in the fear of divine punishment. The Eze Henry was not just a king, he was a living God in the eyes of his people. His word was law, not because he could enforce it by force, but because he was believed to be the earthly representative of the gods. The kingdom's influence spread like whispers in the wind, reaching far beyond the walls of Henry itself. Neighboring villages did not fight against Henry, they invited its spiritual leaders to settle disputes, purify their land, and maintain order. But here's where things get even stranger. Eze Henry was forbidden from shedding blood. He could not execute criminals. He could not wage war. And yet, he was feared by all. How did a kingdom without soldiers maintain peace for centuries? What was their secret? For nearly a millennium, the Kingdom of Henry thrived without the need for swords or spears. But like all great civilizations, their time would come to an end. The arrival of European colonial forces would shatter the world Henry had built. The power of the Eze Henry would be challenged like never before. And the peaceful rule of the Igbo's first civilization would be erased from history. This is the story of a kingdom that defied the very nature of power. A kingdom that showed the world that true leadership was not built on fear, but on faith. Now let us step back into time and rediscover the forgotten Kingdom of Henry. The Henry Kingdom was not just a kingdom, it was a system of governance that defied convention. Founded around the 9th century, Henry emerged as a kingdom that was unique in its organization. At the heart of its leadership was the Eze Henry, the spiritual king who was believed to have a direct connection to the gods. The Eze's rule was centered around maintaining harmony, order, and a deep spiritual connection to the land and its people. Unlike most kingdoms of the time, the Henry Kingdom was not built on conquest. Instead, it grew through spiritual and cultural influence, a kingdom ruled by priests, not warriors. But what made the Eze Henry so special? Why did they rule with peace instead of war? The Eze Henry, the king of this mystical kingdom, was a figure who stood apart from ordinary rulers. He wasn't a warrior, nor did he engage in traditional battles for land or wealth. Instead, he was seen as a spiritual conduit, the intermediary between the gods and the people. The Eze Henry's authority came not from military strength but from his ability to connect the people to divine forces through ritual and ceremony. The Henry people believed the king could cleanse the land of evil, enforce justice, and ensure that peace prevailed throughout the kingdom. One of the most powerful aspects of the Eze Henry's rule was that he could not shed blood, a concept completely foreign to the military-based kingdoms of the time. But how was this possible? How did the Henry Kingdom expand its influence without engaging in the bloodshed that was common in other empires? The answer lies in the kingdom's ability to create a spiritual and diplomatic system that brought other neighboring groups under its influence. The power of the Eze Henry was not only political, it was deeply spiritual. In Henry, the king was seen as a divine figure, believed to have the authority to interact with the spirit world. His connection to the gods was vital in maintaining peace and balance in the kingdom. This spiritual leadership was exemplified in the unique rituals and ceremonies performed by the Eze Henry and his priests. They performed rites to ensure that the land remained fertile, the people were prosperous, and conflicts were settled peacefully. It was said that when a new Eze Henry ascended to the throne, it was not just a political event, but a spiritual rebirth for the entire kingdom. The Eze Henry's power wasn't based on military conquest. Rather, it was through his spiritual authority that peace was maintained. His role was more about restoring order and guiding his people through rituals that aligned them with the divine forces of the universe. While many kingdoms expanded through wars and conquest, the Henry Kingdom grew through peaceful influence. Henry's expansion was largely due to the diplomatic efforts of the priests and spiritual leaders. When a neighboring community wished to join the kingdom, they weren't conquered, they were invited to partake in the spiritual wisdom of the Henry. Henry maintained its vast territory not through militarization but by spreading cultural and religious influence. They would send emissaries to other parts of Igbo land, offering their wisdom, sacred teachings, and the blessings of the gods. This created a powerful bond, one that didn't rely on swords but on shared faith and trust. By the late 19th century, Henry's unique system of governance would face its greatest challenge: colonialism. The British, who had no understanding of the power of spiritual rule, sought to replace the Eze Henry with European-style governance. The arrival of the British signaled the end of the Henry Kingdom's long-standing reign. The colonial powers, disregarding the spiritual authority of the Eze Henry, replaced him with British-appointed rulers. The people were forced to adapt to new laws, systems, and ways of life that undermined the traditional Igbo way. However, even though the Henry Kingdom as a formal system of governance ended, its influence remains present today in the culture, rituals, and practices of the Igbo people. The legacy of Henry is alive in Igbo culture today. The spiritual practices of the Henry Kingdom continue to influence the way the Igbo people conduct their ceremonies and rituals. The title of Eze Henry still exists in parts of Igbo land, with modern leaders drawing inspiration from the ancient wisdom of their predecessors. The principles of peaceful diplomacy, spiritual connection, and community service that the Henry Kingdom upheld are still embedded in the cultural fabric of modern Igbo society. The kingdom might have fallen, but its influence continues to shape Igbo identity. The Henry Kingdom was more than just a political entity, it was a civilization unlike any other. A kingdom that rejected war, yet thrived for centuries. A system where rulers led not with weapons, but with wisdom. And a people who believed that power was not found in the sword, but in the spirit. Though the colonial era reshaped the landscape of Igbo governance, the values and spiritual heritage of Henry continue to resonate today. The ideas of peace, diplomacy, and communal living are still deeply rooted in Igbo society. The influence of Henry can be seen in the traditional titles still held by elders, in the rituals that honor the ancestors, and in the enduring Igbo philosophy of self-governance and unity. But as we move forward in a rapidly changing world, we must ask ourselves, have we truly honored the legacy of the Henry Kingdom? Have we preserved the wisdom that once made this civilization thrive? Or have we allowed the knowledge of our ancestors to fade into obscurity? History has shown us that civilizations rise and fall, but their impact can last forever. The Henry Kingdom, though forgotten by many, left behind a blueprint for leadership, one based on wisdom, justice, and spirituality rather than force and domination. Perhaps in revisiting our past, we can uncover solutions for the present and future. So now, I leave you with this question. Should the Henry Kingdom be remembered as one of Africa's greatest civilizations? Or will it remain just another forgotten chapter in the long and complex history of the world? For centuries, history books have celebrated the warriors, the conquerors, the empires built on war. But what about the civilizations built on wisdom, on peace, on spiritual leadership rather than military might? Isn't it time we start honoring the societies that proved power is not always about force? The Henry Kingdom teaches us something powerful, that leadership does not have to come from the blade of a sword. That true power is not in how many enemies you conquer, but in how many people follow you willingly. That peace, diplomacy, and wisdom can build an empire just as mighty as any that relied on war. And yet, how many of us truly know this story? How many of us have been taught about this in school? If the world had remembered the kingdom of Henry, could history have taken a different path? The British came, the world changed, and the Henry Kingdom, once the heart of Igboland, became just another forgotten relic of time. But today, we have the power to bring it back. We have the power to rewrite the story, to honor the ancestors, to ensure that the wisdom of Henry does not fade away forever. But history is not just about the past. It is about the present and the future. So I ask you, what lessons from Henry's way of life can we apply today? Could modern nations benefit from leaders who rule with wisdom instead of violence? Could we find solutions to today's conflicts by studying how the Henry kings maintained peace for nearly 1,000 years? Let's start a conversation. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this journey through history, if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, then make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more untold stories of African greatness. Because history only stays alive when we remember it. When we pass it on. When we refuse to let it be erased. This is just the beginning. There are more stories to uncover, more lost civilizations waiting to be rediscovered. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button now. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, keep exploring the past, because the future is always built upon the lessons of history. History lives through us.